purveyors of passion, seeking to expand human consciousness from the deep depths of the universe of your soul.
Welcome, family, and this is the H2O Network. H2O seeks to explore and engage in truthful dialogue regarding human life, and water is the conduit. Water impacts every aspect of our existence, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. In today's connected world experience, access to information is almost limitless. Let us share our insight, broaden the spectrum of understanding so that we can move forward enlightened, hopeful, and willing to participate in all human affairs. Welcome, family. This is the H2O Network, and this is your host, Dia Nunez, broadcasting live from New York City. I'd like to welcome everyone in the chat room, everyone on the phone lines, and to everyone who will be listening to this via the archives later on. Make sure that you carry the H2O Network wherever you go with iTunes. If you go to the H2O Network's profile page on Blog Talk Radio, under our shows, we have an RSS feed and an iTunes button. Push that iTunes button, and you can carry us in your pocket and take us wherever you go so you never miss an H2O Network broadcast. And also, check out our blog. We're at the H2O.blogspot.com. That's the H2O Network, .blogspot.com. And also, if you'd like to email us about future guests or have any questions or anything of that nature, you can also email us at the H2O Network at gmail.com. And also on Facebook. I'm on Facebook. Just type into your search engine Dia Nunez, Dianunez, and you'll be able to find me in the search engine so we can hang out, conversate, and all of that good stuff. Today I'm really excited about this next guest. I tell you, I have been trying to find a guest like this for a long time, and what I mean is a storyteller. The ancient ways of our ancestors, whether you're African American, American Indian, Asian, the ancestors used to tell these wonderful, glorious stories of our moral and ethical fabric of life through storytelling. One can tell a story, but to me, storytelling is an art, a lost art that we just don't hear very often. And I have been searching for a storyteller, and we have found one, an elder on the East Coast. Very happy to have Temujin Ekunfeo, an elder, Orisha practitioner, as a storyteller. And from what I understand, he is awesome, and I'm really excited to have him on the H2O Network because I really believe as the human race, there are certain aspects of our ancients that we really need to go back to the art and the essence of storytelling. So many wonderful stories to be told, but there are very few people, if you will, who have the artistic flair of telling a story. It takes a very special type of person, and the HO Network found that person today. So I'm going to bring Temujin on the line. Greetings, Elder.
Greetings.
Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I know that you're traveling and you're quite busy, so I'm very grateful, extremely grateful that you decided to spend time with the H2O family.
My honor and my pleasure.
Well, before we start talking about the essence of storytelling, I love storytelling. How did one come about wanting to be this storyteller like you are? I mean, being in the fabric of indigenous tradition, we all hear storytellers, if you will. Anybody can tell a story, but to have that artistic variable is very much different. It's a craft. How did this come into your life, Baba?
Wow. I guess the best answer is that I've always been a storyteller. My mother used to laugh about the fact that people paid me to do what I've been doing since I was first able to talk. So it was something I always had an ability to do. Whenever I'd be with my friends growing up, and we'd sit around and tell the kind of jokes that the kids tell to each other, even though we might all know the joke, they always wanted me to be the one that told it. It seemed that I always seemed to tell it better. And I never thought at that time that I would do it professionally. I didn't know of anyone who did tell stories professionally. I mean, there were in the library, but even then the librarian never told the story. The librarian always read the story from a book. So to learn a story and tell a story was something that I just did. And I got involved telling stories in 1968 when I was working then as a poet with a troupe of poets. We called ourselves the Uhuru Poets, the Freedom Poets. And sometimes instead of doing poetry, I told stories. And I started to get a lot of calls from people to come out and do storytelling as opposed to come out and read my poetry. So I decided to not argue with the public and give them what they wanted. And here I am doing storytelling.
Well, I know, Baba, that you are very, very spiritually inclined. And as human beings on this path of reality, we get spiritual hints, if you will, from the ethers of our path. Mm-hmm. I mean, people have passions, but how did you know that this was your spiritual quest? Did you have like a visitation from an ancestor or an Orisha literally coming to you in the dream time and telling you, Baba Temujin, you've got to tell the story, the indigenous stories, or to be a storyteller for humanity?
No. Not like that at all, unless you count the fact that when I was initiated into the priesthood in 1978, I was told I had already been working as a storyteller since 1968. So in 78, when I got initiated into the Orisha priesthood, I had kind of been out of professional storytelling for a little while. I got what many folks call a real job. I was working at night as a janitor while I was going to college. And in the divination that's done as part of the priesthood initiation, the Ita, mm-hmm. I was told that, the Oriate, the priest doing the reading, told me to stick out my tongue. And I thought, why in the world does this man want me to stick out my tongue? So he said it again because I didn't do it. He said, stick out your tongue. So I did. And he said, that's how you're supposed to make your living. What you're doing right now is not what you're supposed to do. You need to make your living with your tongue. You need to talk for a living. And I'm thinking, yeah, okay, fine. I work at night as a janitor. I've been out of show business for a while. I don't see how that's going to come to be. I was initiated in New York City. When I got back to my hometown, Pittsburgh, I got a phone call from this children's theater troupe called the Imaginarium. What did they want me to do? They wanted me to drum, sing, and tell stories. And that was within 2 weeks after I was initiated into the priesthood. In less than a year, I was no longer working as a janitor at night, and the only job I've had since that time is storytelling.
Spirit works in mysterious ways. When you
sure
have a pay, to do things, Spirit will put things in front of you, and you're like, well, what is this? And then everything's synchronicity. Things just fall into place. Baba, what makes a good storyteller? Like I said at the beginning of the show, anybody can read, if you will, but what makes a dynamic, vibrant, delicious storyteller?
That's a question that I don't think there's an easy answer for. I firmly believe that everybody is a storyteller because we all have stories that we tell. If we've been somewhere and had a good time, we tell about it. We're anxious to tell somebody about it. If we've been somewhere and had a really bad time, we are anxious to tell somebody about it. So we all can tell stories. It's just that not everybody has the drive or the desire to do it professionally, to do it. I do it because I can. I do it because I feel like I have no other choice. I guess that's one way to put it. And so I think the other professional tellers that I know are very much in that same mindset. They do it because they have no other choice. It's what I do, and it's like breathing, or eating, or drinking. I do it because I have to, and I can't think of doing anything else, and would not do anything else because I would miss doing this so much. I think it would hospitalize me, quite frankly.
It's just like me being on the radio. It would literally, they'd have to put me in shackles in a crazy house in order for me not to be on air. And even if they did put me in the lunatic asylum, I would find a way to get on air so I can talk to the people and be in the ether. So I completely understand, Baba. I completely understand. And, you know, when I started to research, because, you know, my spirit was like, you need to find a storyteller. We need to be able, the H2O Network needs to be able to touch the babies and to go back to the campfire feel. And as I was doing my research, Baba, I was so blown away at the culture, the niche culture surrounding storytelling, because one would think it's, well, we're in ATR, so we hear stories all the time, but in mainstream, we've lost that touch of storytelling in a good way, if you will. And I was just so surprised at the underground, and I shouldn't say underground, but just the community surrounding storytellers. Why do you think mainstream has changed so much? Because storytelling used to be a part of the everyday life.
Very true. We don't really even talk to each other that much. I have a cell phone, but I hate sending text messages. I want to talk to you. I want to hear your voice. I want you to hear mine. And we've gotten so much into clickety, 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 there goes the message, that talking to one another is becoming a thing of the past. It's hard for people to sit still and listen, especially young people. I find the young people just have difficulty sitting still long enough to hear a conversation, much less a story being told. And I asked one young man, I do a joke in my show about cell phones, and one little boy said, "Well, but it's quicker than talking." So how can using a text message be quicker than talking to somebody? You speak the words, they hear you. You don't have to click it in and then hit send. It's instantaneous. And he said, yeah, well, see, if I'm watching a movie, then I can send a text message to somebody. And I said, oh, there it is. You're not really engaged in the movie. You're not really engaged in the conversation. You're just not engaged. So the idea of actually being engaged in something, that physical, spiritual contact between two people, is something that the technology is making passé. Here we are. I'm in Pittsburgh. You're in New York. And we're talking to each other. We could have been doing this by on a keyboard, but it's not the same. You can't hear the inflection. You can't hear the emotion. You can't hear the feeling when I'm typing. You just can't do it. And people ask me, well, have you written any books? Have you put your stories in a book? To put a story in a book, for me, is like saying that grape jelly is the same as eating grapes. It's not the same.
Indeed.
It's not. It's impossible for it to be the same. And so stories have to be heard. Voices need to be heard. And when I tell stories, like if I'm doing a concert, I refuse to allow the tech crew to turn out the house lights. because I need to see the people I'm talking to. I need to be able to look into their faces and see them smile, and it's important. If it's like making love with somebody and you both got bags over your heads. I want to see my lover, and when I am engaged in telling a story, it is an act of love between me and every person in that audience, and I want to see them while we are together.
Jay, and it's almost, it reminds me of when you say making love. You're making love to every individual in the audience in your storytelling. You are making love to their consciousness. You are caressing their consciousness and actually exchanging energy and signatures.
Absolutely.
That go well beyond you, because I really feel that storytellers in general we're all vessels for the ethers, but storytellers, they are handing down signatures from the ethers from generation, thousands of years of information of encoding. And you're literally encoding someone's consciousness as you are mingling in that gumbo soup. And
Yep.
You need to be able to see into the eyes of their soul, because the eyes really speak volumes. When you connect through the eyes and you're telling this story, there's like this transfer. So I completely understand what you're saying. And, it's interesting when you also talk about technology. I was talking with someone today. This whole technological scape in which we find ourselves in has two sides of the coin. If one is devolved, if you will, being indoctrinated with certain things with their consciousness, because nowadays people don't read or things of this nature to enhance themselves. But then there's the other side where people's consciousness is flourishing and they're connecting with individuals, and we have to be very much careful. But when you're a storyteller or your consciousness is on a certain path, if you will, the area and genre of technology is so fabulous because it breaks beyond the barriers of geographical space. It's like time travel. I love it.
It is. And so do I. I find myself often, I get in a conversation with somebody. This happened over the weekend while I was in Connecticut. And I find that I kind of get started, and I realize that I'm just going because they've hit the button, and now the story flows out of me. And I think folks who know me like to push the button so that the stories will start flowing, whether I really wanted to do that at that junction in time or not. But they know me. They know if you get in a conversation with Temujin, there's going to be a story in there somewhere. It's just going to happen. And having been on the planet now 60 years, I've collected quite a few, and from my own personal experience, stories that my father told me. My father was born in 1899. So things that are commonplace for us, he remembered when they didn't exist at all, when most folks still didn't have electric lights, when folks didn't have a toilet in their house. They had to go outside to an outhouse. He was a milkman with a wagon and a horse. This is something we see on movies, but this was something he lived. So these were stories that he told me, and then the stories that my mother told me, who was born in 1916. And it was just, listening to them was better than reading a history book, because I could ask them questions, they could put an inflect, they could do something with it, with the story coming out of their bodies that I could never get from a book. And it just inspired me. But believe it or not, when I was a young boy, I was shy. People who know me now think it's a lie when I say that. But it's true, I was very shy. And putting two words together was not easy for me. And, around my friends was one thing because they were my friends. But in front of strangers, I didn't talk much. And all that changed. And here I am, running my mouth.
When you go back and you were just explaining about your mother and your father, the Internet, I always say the technological tools are replicas of the real, replicas of spiritual tools that we came to the planet with, and one of them is the spirit, the Ache of sound, the Ache of linguistics, and you were interfacing with the web, if you will, with the ancestors through your parents, and that was interactive within itself, and that was the Internet. But now it is transformed into a tangible electronical thing, if you will, and it's so amazing. I think about my grandmother often, and I always wonder, like, wow, if she's been gone for over 20 years. And I think to myself, man, she would flip out if she knew, her granddaughter and even my great-grandmother, that I'm on the radio talking to someone in a different state without a telephone, and, I'm looking at this screen. She would totally flip out because my grandma was old school. That there were microwaves in her time, and she's like, honey, I don't know what that thing is over there, but I know what my crock pot is, so I'm going to stick with that. She's like, I'm not fooling with that. I don't know what that is. So it would just be so fascinating if she could come back here in the flesh, even though I do see her in the ethers quite often, to experience the wonder of what's going on now in this frequency. It's quite magnificent, to say the least.
Yeah, no two ways about it. But for as much as we've developed technologically, for all the things that it can do, for the fact that it has provided a link between you and I that was not possible when I was, even just 5 years ago. But when I got involved in 1968, what we're doing now would not have been possible, really. And so that part is a wonderful thing. But unfortunately, we also allow technology to dehumanize us instead of enhance our humanity. And that worries me. That worries me a lot, because we don't talk to each other. We talk at each other, but we don't talk to each other. I think that's why the divorce rate is so high. People don't. We don't communicate. You don't communicate, and you got to communicate.
Absolutely. It has devolved the linguistical faculties of humanity, if you will. And that's a very scary thing, because the tipping point, Baba, can go either way. We can go to a place where we're quite evolved and using these technological things for good, but it can also tip the other way to where we knock ourselves back to the dark ages. And that's quite profound and very, very frightening. So the pendulum can go either way at this point, at where the consciousness of humanity is, because you have this whole group of individuals who are doing what you do, and other individuals who are spreading consciousness throughout the ethers. But yet when you walk outside the door in New York City and you see people who are caught up in the rigmaroles of life and the survival mode, it's quite scary. It's going to be interesting to see where all of the chips fall in, like, the next decade, where we are in humanity's consciousness scape.
Very true. Very, very true. But then again, you said something that I found interesting. Something might happen to knock us back technologically into the dark ages. But then that would mean that society would once again become dependent upon people like me.
Ache.
Folks that have to start listening and paying attention. In the spiritual tradition that you and I both follow, the people who got off the boat in chains in Cuba they didn't read and write. Their language was not a language that had a written component. So all of the knowledge was passed down from mouth to ear and passed down faithfully from mouth to ear. Now, we don't feel like we can learn something unless there's a book we can read. So our memories have become shorter. Our abilities to communicate verbally with one another have become impaired. And we've lost a lot that those folks had. So it would be bad to lose all the technology we have. I enjoy technology. I think it's a wonderful thing. But I would definitely love to have us sit around and talk. I used to go and hang out with my friends on the corner or go down to the park and hang out, and we talked to each other. We may not have been saying anything of any great importance, and a lot of the stuff that we were saying to each other, I'm sure our parents would have been annoyed about. You know, the dirty jokes that young people tell each other, and the foolishness that comes out of the mouths of pre-teenage and teenage boys. But when we hung out with each other, we talked, and we'd spend hours talking. Now the kids sit together and they're in front of a screen, and though they're in each other's company and they're interacting with each other, they're not really interacting with each other. And that's a sad thing about modern time. We don't really interact with each other, and we need to do that.
Archie, we do, and you just reminded me of another perspective, if you will. The perspective of, in all essence, from a technological point, it would be the Dark Ages, but in essence, the flip side of what I stated, and you just stated it, we wouldn't really be going back to the Dark Ages from a consciousness standpoint, because let's face it, you know, there's the people called the Dogon in Africa, and they were doing the internet with their minds.
Yep.
And they were checking out the ethers, and they knew all about Sirius without any technological tools. So it would beg to differ to seem that we would evolve instead of devolve from a consciousness standpoint. Because if we look from a historical basis, if you will, if you look at all of the ancient indigenous traditions on this planet, they were building pyramids that all connected and held up the grid consciously, and they still can't, modern people and scientists still can't figure this out today. So you are absolutely on point, Baba. It's this double-headed sword. From a tangible standpoint, we have evolved, but we are devolved because our consciousness has broken the wave of communion.
Yes.
We are literally having communion with human beings, not only human beings, but from the ethers, because these human beings are vessels. You are so correct, so correct.
So it's something that is very exciting to me. It's something that I work at trying to encourage others to get involved in. You know, read a book is good. Read a book and talk to somebody about the book is better, because then you're sharing that experience, and hopefully you're sharing that excitement and that excited energy between two people is beyond tangible. There's a very dear friend of mine that passed away recently. He was a storyteller. He works under the name Brother Blue. And he used to say, you know, you can't see it. You can't touch it. It's just, And that's what it is. We're missing the, that breath that passes between us. We need to have that in our lives. And without it, we become less and less human and less humane.
Archie. Archie.
So don't get me started, or I'll be running my mouth, and you won't even be able to get a word in edgewise.
No, you. Let me tell you, Baba, you are an elder. And like I always say, I'm like the people who know me. I'm a modern woman, but I am also old school, and I believe in the elders. I believe in wisdom. I believe in listening and communing with the elders. So, honey, you go ahead and you go on a tangent because you know that since you are a master storyteller, that I'm going to ask for a story or two. You had to know I was going to ask you.
Well,
we want to hear your story, of course,
okay.
Of course.
Well, all right. This is one of my favorites. Of course, any story I tell is a favorite. It didn't take me long to figure out when somebody asked me to teach storytelling, and for a long time I wasn't at all sure how I could do that. Back in the 70s, there was a boxer from Cuba named Teofilio Stevenson. He was a heavyweight, and he never lost. He never lost. He retired from amateur boxing undefeated. And they interviewed him one time and asked him, So you never lose. How do you do it? And he said, I don't know. I hit them and they fall down. And when they asked me that same question about storytelling, he said, well, how do you do it? And I said, I don't know. I just do. So I had to really think about it. I had to really kind of analyze it. And I wasn't sure how to even begin to go about explaining something that I did without thinking. I just did it. There was no conscious effort. There was no plan. There was no technique. I just opened my heart, and the words came out of my mouth. And that's the essence of it. So then it was about trying to encourage people to open their hearts and let the words come out of their mouths. And that's the essence of storytelling, whether it's you sitting in a room with somebody, or you standing in the park with somebody, or you on the phone with somebody. You open the heart and you let the words come out of your mouth. Now, there was a prince who was the son of a prince and the grandson of a prince and the grandson of a prince's prince. And he had it in his mind that he wanted to find out if his father's wise men were as wise as everybody said they were. I mean, just because a lot of people say something doesn't make it true. And he, being of that frame of mind, wanted to be sure that these wise men were truly wise. So he called them into him one day and he said, gentlemen, bring me the very best meat in all the world. And the wise men didn't say anything. They walked out of the room. When they came back, they had someone with them from the kitchen carrying a very large plate. And on that plate was a cooked cow's tongue. And the prince looked at the tongue and said, ew, do you want me to believe that tongue is the best meat in all the world? And the wise men smiled and said, young prince, tongue is the best meat in all the world, because with your tongue, you say things that make your friends and loved ones feel special. With your tongue, you say things that make your parents and teachers proud. With your tongue, you say things that will bring honor to your name and honor to the names of your ancestors. Nothing is better than a constructive tongue. And the prince said, okay, now what's the worst meat in all the world? And the wise men left. When they came back, they had someone with them from the kitchen carrying a large plate. And on that plate was another cooked cow's tongue. And the prince said, wait a minute, hold it. You must think I'm stupid. You just told me that tongue was the best meat in all the world. Now you're telling me tongue is the worst meat in all the world? The same thing is both good and bad. How can that be possible? And the wise men smiled. They said, young prince, tongue is the worst meat in all the world, because with your tongue you say things that bring your friends and loved ones pain. With your tongue you say things that make your parents and teachers not proud of you at all. With your tongue You say things that bring dishonor to your name and dishonor to the names of your ancestors. There is no sword that can cut like a tongue. There is no knife or arrow or spear that can pierce like a tongue. And when you have wounded someone with your tongue, it takes a long time for them to heal and an even longer time for them to forget. Nothing is worse than a destructive tongue. There's a saying that goes, sticks and stones will break your bones, but words will never harm you. That is a lie. Words cut deeper and leave a scar that lasts forever, and you don't forget. And words also caress in a way that rivals a physical touch, because you don't forget when someone has told you something that made you feel special. You feel even the memory of them having told you makes you feel warm deep, deep down in your heart. So nothing on this planet is better or worse than the tongue.
Wow. Beautiful.
Thank you. And that's a story that actually comes from one of the Odu.
I know it does. I was like, that story sounds familiar.
It ought to. It ought to. And I love telling that story because it is so important. And what did they tell me in my Utah? Stick out your tongue. That's how you're supposed to make your living. And I have been blessed to be making my living with my tongue since 1968. And then to come back into the business again in 1978. And I have not had to have, quotes, a real job again since then.
Well, you have a real job.
Yes, I do.
You are the verbal scribe, if you will, of the ancestors of the Orisha. And one of the things that, hearing that story that I love, and what I love about the Apatakis, about the Orisha, of the ethical and moral essence of human life, is that you were able to transcribe that into something that is secular, if you will, that everyone will understand. And I love that. That story is so, should I say, delicious. It truly is. I find storytelling delicious. It's like this symphony of things going on, because as one is telling the story and giving the Ache of Elenu, of the tongue, one is creating the story in their consciousness with color, with live and living color, and that's what I love about storytelling. I feel like I need some cafe con leche right now. I need to put on my nice warm pajamas with the fire. All I need is a fire to be brewing. Tell us more. I want to hear. Can you tell us 2 more stories, Papa?
Sure, I can. I was working a festival, and one of the patrons told me this story, and I like it a lot, so I tell it pretty frequently. There was a man, he had just got off from work, and he's walking down the street, and he goes past this junk shop, and he looks in the window, and he thinks, well, it's junk, and really there's probably nothing here that I have any interest in. But I'm going to go in and take a look anyway. What the heck? So he goes in, and he's walking around, and he sees something that looks like Aladdin's lamp. And he says, all right, I know this is phony. There's no way in the world that this could be real. But I'm going to buy it and take it home. So he buys it. He takes it home. And when he gets home, he dampens the cloth and goes to wipe the dust off. And as soon as he rubs it that first time, there's a genie standing in front of him. Your wish is my command. And the guy says, oh, all right. My wish is your command? Yes, your wish is my command. What do you want? And the man thought for a bit, and he said, I want to go to Hawaii. I've never been, and I've always wanted to go. I want to go. And the genie snapped his fingers, and there was a plane ticket right there. So here's the plane ticket. You go out of the apartment, take the elevator down. You walk outside, there'll be a cab waiting. Get in the cab. The cab will take you to the airport. When you get to the airport, don't worry about a thing. Just walk straight through security. They're not going to stop you. When you get on the plane, and the plane is just for you. It's one of those big jumbo jets. You'll be in first class. Everybody will be there to take care of you. When you get off the plane in Hawaii, there'll be a cab waiting. You get in the cab, it takes you to the hotel. The clothes will be there. You'll have money for food. Everything will be fine. Guy says, I can't do it. Why can't you do it? I'm afraid of airplanes. Airplanes, they fall out the sky. I get killed. That's not fun. I'm not doing it. Genie says, okay, give me back the ticket. Snaps his fingers again. Here, this is a boat ticket. The cab is waiting. Get in the cab. You go, and the boat is there, and you get on the boat, and it's a great, big, huge, beautiful boat. They got restaurants. They got casinos. You can go see movies. You can go see plays. You can exercise. They got 3-4 swimming pools. One of them you can even surf in. It's great, and you'll be on the boat. They'll take care of you. They'll feed you because it's a long way to Hawaii. And when you get to Hawaii, you get off, and the cab and everything else is the same. And the guy says, I can't do it. Genie says, why? Have you seen the ocean? It's full of water. It's bigger than every boat anywhere in all the world. The boat's in the water. The ocean swallows it. I die. That's not fun. Can't do it. Genie says, I got bad news for you, friend. You're not going to Hawaii. Genie says, well, you could build a bridge. And the genie says, look around you. We're in Manhattan. Hawaii is the other side of the world from here. There's no way. Look, if I build a bridge from here to Hawaii, I'd have to put a bunch of gas stations on it. I'd have to put hotels on it. I'd have to put restaurants. I'd have to put places just to go to the bathroom. It's impossible. It's insane. I can't do it. Forget about it. And the man looked really, really disappointed. And he says, all right. I guess I'm not going to go to Hawaii. No, you're not going to Hawaii. Forget about it. He says, okay. Since I can't go to Hawaii, I got it. I know you can do this. I got it. I want to understand women. I've never understood my mother. I never understood either one of my grandmothers. I had sisters. They all drove me crazy, and every woman on my job is certifiably insane. I am sure of it. I want to understand women. Help me understand women. And the genie said, about that bridge, you want that with one lane or two? When that man told me that story, I said, I like it. I'm stealing it. And he said, fine. Now, I only heard it once, but I was able to repeat it. And I learned, for me, that is the essence of being able to tell a story. I can't tell a story that doesn't touch me the first time I either read it or hear it. If it doesn't move me in that very first instant, that's not a story that I'll ever be able to tell. It won't stay. And I've learned never to try and force a story into my head. It won't stay. And it's clear that it won't be real. And you have to be real. If you're not yourself, it's noticeable. You have got to be yourself, no matter what's happening. Just be yourself, and you'll make a contact that is intangible. Like young guys are always trying to figure out how to get the girl, and they've got a friend who always gets the girl, and the guy that can't get the girl can't understand why. So he asks his friend for some of the lines that he uses to pick up women. And, of course, when you use those lines, anybody with ears knows that's not you. And the woman tells you, well, look, why don't you come back when you know who you are and what it is you're trying to say, because that don't sound like you. And we need to just be ourselves. And being yourself will get you farther in this life than trying to be anything else. Be yourself. Speak for yourself, and everything will be fine. And that's what I tell people when I encourage them to be storytellers. Just be yourself. Don't try and be me. Don't try and copy my style. Just be yourself. And it won't fail. I can guarantee it. It won't fail. Everybody doesn't have the drive to do this professionally, but if you're just yourself, you'll go so much farther. Just be yourself.
So since you said that, what are the elements, Baba, if you will, for storytelling? Be yourself. I shouldn't say obviously, but a moral and ethical variable. I would say an element to make people smile or to laugh, because I love that story. That cracks me up. What are some other elements? Because I would love to be able to write children's stories and have it be entertaining. There are certain elements to that.
I guess there are, but you know what? I don't know them.
He's like, I have no idea.
I have no idea. Because I don't write. Even the stories that I have developed, I've never written them. They just develop, and I tell them. All right, here's one of the stories that I do. I have a cousin who's now in her 40s. She's a cousin on my wife's side, so when I met her, she was a girl of maybe 4 or 5. And I came up with just to mess with her, talking about Willie and Jojo, and West Indians, Willie and Jojo. Say, man, have you seen Jojo? You know the boy crazy. And she would just giggle and fall on the floor because she thought that was just the funniest thing. Well, I have now a series of Willie and Jojo stories that I put together because of playing around with my young cousin. Shall I tell you a Willie and Jojo story?
Oh, you know you have to. You know you have to.
Well, I ain't gonna, so there now. No.
No.
I'm joking. All right. I got 2 friends named Willie and Jojo. They live on the island of Jamaica. One day, William would go to Jojo's house and say, Jojo, you go fish? Say, man, I can't go. Say, why you can't go? Say, man, I got to watch the BB. Say, man, bring the BB. Can't bring the BB. BB only do a few things. Him eat, him sleep, him cry, him mess up diaper. And me washing dirty diaper all day long. He say, man, you ain't never hear of them pamper diaper? Pamper diaper. Pamper diaper. What in the world kind of diaper is that? Oh, brother, it's a wonderful thing. You put it on the BB mess it up, you take it off and you throw it away. What, you throw away the baby? No, fool. Throw away the diaper. So where me find something like that? So you got to come down out the countryside. You got to go to a big city like Kingston. Kingston, Jamaica, them got 7-Eleven. Kingston, Jamaica, them got grocery store. Kingston, Jamaica, them got pamper diaper. 3 days later, William will go back to Jojo's house and knock on the door. He say, Jojo, you go fish? Jojo say, man, I've been waiting for you for 3 days, and I got them pamper diaper and them a fine thing. He said, well, you got one on the baby? He said, yeah. Boy, go out and show Uncle Willie them pamper diaper. And the baby walk outside, and the pamper diaper dragging along the ground. Willie looked down and he say, Jojo, my brother, you got to change that thing. And Jojo said, no, me read the books. Books say good for 25 pounds. They're not but 10 pounds in the pamper diaper now. Now, I did that story once at an elementary school for 5th graders. And all the 5th grade kids got it. They all got it. I mean, they have little cousins, they have little sisters. They might even have nieces and nephews, depending on how old their parents are. They all got it. And there was a teacher who was maybe 19, well, she had to be 25, 26 years old, and she found that story's offensive. How can you tell that to children? I said, come on. These kids are old enough to know what a dirty diaper is. This is just life. Get over yourself. There's nothing offensive in that story. But some
that
people
is hilarious. You almost made me choke. How can you need to warn a sister? The accent alone just makes you want to scream. It just makes you want to scream.
I was doing a show in West Virginia at a resort, and there were some West Indians there as a couple. And they came up to me after the show, and they asked me what island was I from. And I told them, I used to live on the Big Island. I said, the Big Island? Irie, Manhattan Island.
Oh, my God, that's hilarious.
The closest I've been to Jamaica is Jamaica, Queens. So.
Oh, that is classic. Oh, my God, you're making me sweat. That's hilarious. Baba, let me tell you, time goes by so quick, and you have been such a pleasure. You have got to come back to the H2O Network. I mean, please, I'm begging you. You got to come back. You are
No, I won't do it. No.
Please, you're such a joy.
I can't. No. I would love to. It would be
You're
my honor.
such a joy. I love your energy. I love the way that you tell stories. And please, I know that you don't do Facebook very often, but how can people get in? Oh,
I do.
You? Okay.
I have one of the wireless internet connections. I'm sitting in a tent on a fairground in Guilford, Connecticut, and I'm able to contact people because of technology. So I'm not against technology. I'm just against technology putting up a barrier between me and the rest of humanity. So, yeah, I'm on Facebook just about every day. When you called me yesterday, I was on the highway driving home from Guilford, Connecticut. I was still a good 6-7 hours away from home when you called me. I didn't get home until 4 o'clock this morning.
Oh, wow. So I'm extra thankful. Kudos. You are doing your thing. So you're on Facebook, correct? So people type in Temujin, Ekunfeo, and I'll spell that for you.
Ekunfeo.
Oh, yes. Please tell people how to spell that, because I don't want to butcher nothing while we on the air and we're responsible.
A lack of communication is a bad thing. First name is Temujin, T as in Thomas, E, M as in Mary, U, J, I, N as in Nancy. Last name is E-K, U-N as in Nancy, F as in Frank, E-O. If you go on Facebook, you will see my bright smiling face, because everybody doesn't put a picture with their Facebook profile, which doesn't make sense to me. And there I will be.
Wonderful. What is the next event that you have coming up, Baba, in the tri-state area?
I won't be back up that way for a while. Everything else that I'm doing, in fact, I don't know when my next thing is going to be in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area. Everything else is going to be either here in the Pittsburgh area or in South Central Pennsylvania or in Northeast Pennsylvania. And next year, my first big job away from home is in Deerfield Beach, Florida. So every now and then, I do have to stay home. I'm married. My wife likes me. And though she likes the fact that I work, she also wants my behind at home with her where I belong.
I ain't mad at her. So we will keep people abreast of what you're doing.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And I will be giving you a call very soon so we can schedule. It was such a pleasure having you here, and I send you so much love, Baba. Thank you for being the keeper of knowledge. Thank you for being the scribe of ancient tradition that has been handed down for generation to generation, I humble myself and I put my head to the floor, Maferifu Norisha, because this is a tradition that one needs to keep going. It is very much important to the fabric of the indigenous. And I thank you so much for what you contribute to humanity.
Thank you.
And once again, family, an awesome show. I mean, what can one say after that? That was so, it was everything that I expected and more. Love storytellers. Storytellers are so, they're just, the only word that you can really describe it is in deliciousness. It's just so voluptuous and full of life. And we need to make sure that we hold up our elders who are storytelling with Elenu through the voice or through song, through dance. All of these things are storytelling, but in a different form, in a different way. And we need to make sure that we nurture that legacy. They are very much important to the fabric of humanity. It doesn't matter if you're an African spiritual traditions, American Indian, it does not matter. The fabric of humanity, we need to make sure that we take care of our elders and we share their wisdom so this wisdom is not lost to the ethers, because we have lots to gain as a global community from what our elders have to say and the stories that they have to tell. So I feel so blessed. I feel so full. My glass is half full and not half empty. As I always say, family, you do not have to live a life of mediocrity in any way, shape, or form. You do have a choice. Choose to use your voice in a powerful way. Know that the power of voice can either cut or it can heal. Which path are you going to choose? We can uplift a group of people. We can uplift humanity just through storytelling, just through the power of our voices. We can move mountains. I really believe that. We can move people to be inspired. Inspired. Inspire yourself. Inspire your family. Inspire your community. No matter how small or how big, we can no longer sit by the sidelines and be silent. We've got to come forward with our gifts in this time. We are too special. We have too many things going on in the world. And as I always say, family, live happy and be happy. And until next time, bye-bye.